Hello and welcome to another jungle video, and in this one we are going to be having a look at the rank 1 jungler in Korea who has reached 1000 LP already. And now before I break down what exactly this video is going to be about, I need to announce that we are having that week-long jungle bootcamp. A 6-day jungle extravaganza event full of lectures from me, basically explaining everything about the jungle that I know, a bunch of guest speakers that we're trying to get on, games, drills, free coaching, Q&As and more. If you will not be able to make it to all the live sessions, which is understandable, there will be an ability for you to watch all the VODs of everything that happens throughout the week. Day 1 is going to be free, so you can check it out there as well. However, all ticket buyers will be put into a raffle for free coaching from me that you can get in addition to the value of the whole week. First 100 ticket buyers will get a double entry. We are really excited for this bootcamp, the lectures, the lessons, the coaching, everything you might need to become a better player. There will be a link in the description and of course a pinned comment for you to get access. And I really look forward to seeing as many of you there as possible. So rather than look at the champions that the junglers are using to get challenge in Season 12 so far, I found the rank 1 jungler Sound of Winter, so let's look at his champion Ocean. We will look at every aspect of how he actually carries games and impacts games in a variety of ways, and how he used that to get to 1000 LP with a 65% win rate, while decimating some of the best junglers on the planet. Right, so normally a player who succeeds in this capacity kind of has a niche champion pool or specific champions that he loves to spam. And in this case, obviously like everyone else, he enjoys Diana and Viego. But those aren't the champions in which he has the greatest success. Xin Zhao, Jarvan IV, Poppy he loves, Nidalee of course, his career, Rek'Sai, Silas whenever he's filled, Xin obviously, he was playing Talon pre-nerfs, Gragas, Volibear, Taliyah, a truly versatile player that applies this champion Ocean to his game style and it works very, very well. So I figured let me record a bunch of games where he uses a different champion with a different sort of adaptability that we can look at as an example, and then we can speed run through those examples so you can get a really good idea of how he plays the game. But of course, let's summarize that here for you so you can know what to look for. In an ideal environment, he is looking for a super 3 flex clear, which is a very, very weird way of saying he likes the 3 camp and then look to do something. However, if that 3 camp doesn't really work, he will simply do the 5 camp if it's a 5 camp champion. If it's a 4 camp champion, he will do that as well. But the idea is if he does a 3 camper, usually something happens. If the enemy jungler is a bit more aggressive, shows an award, he will immediately flex and adapt his pathing to cut them off and make a play. He is always looking to make sure, number 1, the enemy jungler does not exist. If you show his enemy jungler, he will react every time. If you do something stupid, either being invaded by the top lane and pushed out of your jungle, if you try and level 2 gank, he will punish you every time. This means if you look back at previous metas where you would do a 4 clear into a crab, maybe you gank mid lane, take another crab, maybe you gank bot lane, but otherwise you just do another full sequence, essentially taking 8 camps on your first rotation. Yeah, we're not really in that meta anymore, but in this case, you can kind of do that clean 6, where you will do sort of your grump and wolves. You know the enemy jungler started bottom side like the Xin in this situation, you know he might try and flex a 3 camp gank, so you force the action. Go bottom lane, you know he's going to show up, obviously you have to pay attention to that. Once things have worked themselves out, now you can flow back into your red side, do your Krugs, do your red, do your Raptors. Now maybe you don't actually kill him on the bottom side, but you force him there and then he tries to double scuttle you. If you do kill him, you know he's going to go out of base to the top side, so we cut in front of our camps, try and contest the crab. If our team rotates because of lane prior, great. If you don't have lane prior, either kill him and get out, or just get out if you can't actually, and then fall back to your second grump and second wolves, essentially taking 2 grumps, 2 wolves, 1 raptors, 1 krugs, ignore the buffs in the situation, a clean 6 reset. This is a peak example of what he's looking for, but at the same time, he is permanently tracking, counter ganking, and invading as a priority. You can see from this Volibear example that while it isn't the same as a Nidalee, he's doing a 3 camp blue side into his 5 camp. We know the enemy Viego didn't get leashed because all the lanes showed, mana was full bars, nothing happened. So did he solo Raptors? Did he solo red, blue? Did he solo wolves? We have no idea at this stage. So when he has no information, he doesn't make a stupid play. He waits for information and then immediately pounces. What's that? 8 CS Viego showing top lane. Must have started wolves and done his blue because that's what he has. That means the Viego, my friends, is an idiot because you know Volibear gets leashed on the bottom side. You know it's going to take you longer to do wolves, blue, and show top lane. And now the Volibear 100% would not have had time to flex to vertical jungle. If Volibear will do blue side moving into red side at around 217, which means by the time you've shown, it's too late for the Volibear to flex into vertical jungling because that which you think you're forcing, you are not. So instead of doing his Raptors in red and deciding, you know, I'm going to play conservatively, he sees you've made a pathing error, you've misjudged the bear's timings, I'm going to invade you. I'm going to invade you hardcore, I'm going to watch the lanes. If my laner rotates, that's great, but otherwise you can always easily push him out yourself. And guess what? Even though the GP does rotate, if he doesn't rotate, who really cares? If the enemy laners don't rotate and your laners don't rotate, you've won this trade. Viego can't fight you. He has to leave or he dies, which in this case he does, and now you can control his grump, you can control the crab, you can gank top lane. And I'm just going to cut away from this game very quickly. We'll jump back in a second. Because usually if he doesn't really get these things going early like you see in this Lee Sin example, the enemy's a Talon, so even though he's clearing slower, it's very difficult to invade and kill him given the parkour moves. Now whether it's his first back, second back, third back, and we'll look at that as well later in the video, he loves to path directly to bot frequently and always, and then reward himself with scuttles, dragons, heralds, and camps afterwards. So here, there's nothing available early, unlike the Nidalee and the Volibear examples we looked at so far, and thus out of base, directly to bottom lane, lane gank it, beautiful. In the other examples we look at, you will see this quite frequently. Now when you do this, it does open up counter jungling and losing your camps to certain junglers, but he's not afraid of that long-term investment. He focuses more on the win condition of the game rather than always focusing on the highest tier camps available. Obviously we want to focus on that, but not by compromising the game. Let's jump back to the Volibear example after ganking top lane. Now we know that we have tier 1 Raptors, tier 1 Krugs, and our red buff on the top side. We know that our second spawn Grump and second spawn Wolves will be showing. We also know that we have a Xerath Nautilus bottom lane being pushed in, the Lulu's already roaming to the mid lane, Viego out of base is 100% going to focus on the bottom side here, as well as the bottom crab. As such, let's get this Aurelia fed, off we go, take your red buff, gank top lane once more. You can obviously fall back to your Krugs and Raptors, and you know straight up the enemy jungler is going to be taking your Grump, maybe even your Wolves, and we know that because he showed up on Vision. Also, it really doesn't take a genius. So that long-term investment I'm talking about, usually if you can get invades and control the enemy jungler, deny them existence, they never really get back into the game. But if you really can't get a lot of things going or your lane states aren't conducive to perhaps you making these aggressive plays like we just discussed, he has no issue saying, you know what, you take my second spawn Grump and Wolves if you want, I'm gonna go top again, take my tier 1 so that those reset, know that I've got your tier 2 Grump under my control, and because I'm spam ganking top lane, I can dive that as well, knowing you are not here. I will fill that 2-minute 15 timer from when you took my Grump by taking your top laner's life, my camps, your second tier camps, and catch the third spawn in 2 minutes 15. Thumbs up. And that's what he's done, and because he's ahead now, he can translate that into an objective. Because he's gotten his laners ahead in that situation and the Aurelia swapped, well now it's pretty free to invade your jungle and take your stuff and snowball that early game. So that's 2 games that highlights his basic early game phase on the first rotation, how he approaches it, what he looks for, and how he looks to punish the enemy jungler and control the map. Let's look at how he does that on a variety of other champions, as well as how he maintains control for the rest of the early game, getting us to the 15-minute mark where the mid game is just basically very easy and you can close out. You all like Diana, don't you? Well, let's start on the blue side once more. He likes to do that when he's on the red side of the map. His Yone does blessed work and compromises Viego's early clear. Unlike the Volibear example, we do see him, which means we don't need to basically guess where he is and then invade later. We can flex into stealing his red and Raptors right now. And now you've got to pay very close attention to the clock timer. Yes, you could take the Krugs, maybe dive bottom lane if that's shoved in, maybe just gank it if it's not, maybe just take the crab, but that's vertical jungling. This isn't a vertical jungling meta, and we don't want to give the Viego freebies. After Raptors, you know the crab is going to be spawning, you know the Viego assumes you've probably taken his red, and basically he's going to try and sneak away that crab if he can. Mid is shoved in, and we push across, and we cut him off and push him out of that area. If mid wasn't shoved in, you know you just gank it and you do the same play. From this, you know he's gonna go to the bottom side, you'll give him that pity crab because top lane is gankable. Gank it thusly, hold the wave, beautiful. Just like the Nidalee example, we flex that into finishing off our red side and then resetting. And if you remember me saying a clean 6 for the Nidalee example where we don't count the camps, in this case he does do 6 if we count the enemy's red buff as that. Usually I don't count the buffs because it's about the resequencing of our camps that's important. From here back to base, your bot had prior, your bot was able to take the crab, that's nice. And now even though your bot lane is pushing in, again it doesn't matter. Straight out of base, use your level advantage and item advantage, straight down to the bottom line, make a play. Just like the Lee Sin example, just like the Nidalee example as you would have seen from the highlights, out of base to a lane, not the Volibear because he went top, but the same sort of principle, and then rewards himself with that spicy and juicy dragon. Now what happens is the enemy doesn't seem to understand what Diana's doing, they're confused by the efficiency of this jungler and start chasing a Yasuo in the jungle with a Diana, who just got ultimate. And if you watch any sort of pro play, you know this is kinda doomed. Now we very often talk about doing full sequences and then resetting, swapping sides and yada yada, especially as a farming jungler and especially as Diana can do. But it's even more impressive to control quadrants and get a lot of gold by doing a lot of other things on that side, resetting and then swapping sides, because in this case we went out of base, ganked bot, took the dragon, cleared a whole blue side, and in between killed some other people, which means we got a lot of gold. Let's spend it, and now head to the top side for the herald and red side defense. One of the nice things about the chicken nuggets is that they're kind of on the way to something. They're easy to take, and if you want to go mid lane and go directly to a lane through this avenue, might as well take them and then do exactly that. A little bit of patience, and because we had a very delayed taking of our red buff, we know that he can't really sink and invade off that from the enemy jungler's perspective. So we can afford to wait a little bit and then do the combo that which is most disgusting. Free kill. Viego's now running chasing his tail, so we say, well, thanks for the herald. Alright, let's finish off our Krugs, our red spawning, let's take that and shoot back to base. Once more, quadrant finish, back to base, reset, swap sides. Again, out of base, we want to go directly to bot or directly to something else, either an invade or mid lane. There's an RNG crab, we shall bless Odin and secure it for ourselves. Move into his jungle, dive mid lane again. If a fight develops, hold your own, do your best, you are kind of fed. But just play it well, yeah? Don't decide, hey, you know what, I'm gonna vacuum my eyesight onto people and chase them in between two towers. That's how you throw. Make sure you can go down and secure the dragon. If there's literally nothing else for you to do, you can finish off your blue quadrant and you guessed it, reset and swap to the top side. We're not interested in full sequencing in this game. Very heavy action focus, rewarding with camps, reset, spend, keep the item advantage always so that we can win those fights whenever we want. At this point, that's a bit unfortunate because we do need to use a herald, so again, out of base, don't do your camps. Let's pop that sucker on the top wave to catch it with the Yone. However, in this point, you are kind of predictable. On occasion, against other good players, they will collapse, they will read you, and they will kill you. Just try and make it as minimal as possible. And this very much is a case of cornering a snake and cornering a rat. You know, you kind of push them, they have to retaliate at some point because otherwise they just straight up lose, or in this case, die. Or die then lose, technically. And after this is pretty much the same exact thing. Out of base, push the map forward, push the map forward. Only take camps if your team isn't there, if your team is dead, and you can't really afford to do that without risking a 1v5 death. But if everything is set up well for you, don't go and farm your camps and relax. Keep that pressure up, and I will link a video below explaining how to use this particular phase. I didn't really want to repeat myself 18 times because he does it the way everyone does it who's good. And the concept of pushing the map, controlling it, and so that you can close when you have a good lead is pretty much the same quite often. Now, sometimes things won't go as well, so we need to have a few wrinkles here, a few adaptations to make sure we stay relevant in the game. This is really useful when you're playing things like Jarvan and Poppy. Now, for how to play the whole entire game from behind and actually use those comeback mechanics using something like a Poppy, I covered that on my gameplay channel yesterday. In Jarvan's case, what he does is start solo on the red, do the Raptors, follow that up with a Grump, and now classically gank bottom lane or gank mid lane. However, as we know, he likes to suppress the enemy jungler very heavily, knows Diana started top lane and will be full sequencing at the very least, moves to invade, but the Diana is trying to cut off a gank on the mid lane because it's pushed up heavily. He joins a 2v2 and dies, but he's able to get 2 assists. That's great, but now we're not on the map to do our clean 6 camps like with the other junglers. So in this situation, out of base, directly to bottom lane once more. He's unable to get anything, but the intent is still there, and it's good that his bottom lane was able to finish it off. But because he didn't get as fed as he would have liked in this situation, now we can actually afford to say, you know what, we need to do a full sequence. He also knows from jungle intuition and jungle tracking where the Diana is going to be, and I will recommend you to go to the gameplay channel. We talk about tracking in advanced ways with all the kinds of metrics in every single video because it is so fundamental to the decisions they make in high elo. But in this case, he was going to gank top anyway. The fact that he knows Diana is going to be there just means it's another 2v2. Make sure you do your best to come out ahead and burn some sums. And now obviously we've been talking very heavily about how he controls the river, goes directly to lanes, make sure that river is controlled so that enemy jungler can't make plays, and then falls back to his camps and so on. But instead of bot lane and instead of top lane like we've seen, this time we have our support roaming mid lane, so straight down the mid lane, get that crab, repeat gank mid lane, and now once all that fisting is finished, you can fall back to your quadrant on the blue side, and you guessed it, it's not time for the dragon, so let's finish the quadrant and reset. Now we can go to the top side, snack the Raptors on our way to the Herald, as I said, tasty nuggets. And while it's not ideal, if there's literally nothing you can do about an invade of the enemy jungler, a gank or dive top lane to use a Herald, a gank or dive mid lane to use a Herald, fall back to your red side, clear it, finish the quadrant, and you guessed it again, reset. In this case, while it's not ideal, it does give us a finished mythic item, a finished itemization spike that we can use then to make a play in the bottom side. Long-term investment, I'm okay giving up a little bit on the top side to get this. Out of base, go to the bottom lane directly, get what you're owed, push that tower to finish. No, don't do the dragon yet. Let's go mid lane, let's use a herald, let's do our dives, let's counter jungle, let's invade. If enemy laners disrespect you again, you can gank them, and then you can finish your quadrant and reset. So very much a very similar formula as the rest of the games. I'll show you the highlights of that now. But it's a very busy playstyle in games where you're not really focusing on invading the enemy jungler like the Nidalee game and the Volibear game where that was really a tantamount game plan. I guess also with the Diana, and you're playing a bit more supportive in terms of Jarvan and Poppy, he doesn't really invade as much, but really still manages map control, punishing out of position laners, using the map as his feast and then rewarding himself with the desserts of his own camps. And yes, he does this with a champion Ocean. Hope you're able to understand, enjoy, and learn something. Apply these to your own game plans, be hyperactive and efficient, and you should notice yourself grabbing some wins and defeating all the average junglers you have to face. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider leaving a like, sharing, commenting, liking, subscribing if you found the content worthy, of course only. Consider signing up for that bootcamp jungle extravaganza if you really want a good value for your cash monies, and obviously to get knowledge in return. Remember, streaming is back weekly, sometimes 2, sometimes 1. I'm still figuring out a schedule, but definitely every Wednesday. I appreciate all the support everywhere, and as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.